I finished lecture 4.1 on the politics and the state with the rival theories of the state, looking at the patriarchal state. We'll now move on to lecture 4.2, which is still under the umbrella of politics and the state, by looking at the role of the state in societies. Exactly what does the state do for different societies? One example is the example of minimal states. Minimal states lay down conditions for orderly existence only. For minimal states, liberal individualism, liberal freedom is the most important thing. Of course, the state has capacity to constrain human behavior, that is, prevent individuals from encroaching on human rights of others, and act as a kind of night watchman. But for minimal states, they would rather allow the citizens to live their lives. The three core functions of this type of system would be existing to maintain domestic order, secondly, ensuring contracts are enforced in that society, and thirdly, providing protection for citizens against external attack. Those are the foundations for minimal states. The second type of state would be developmental states. Examples of these are the United States and the United Kingdom during the Industrialization Revolution or Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, or the Japan during the Meiji period. Developmental states are states that intervene purposefully in an attempt to promote growth and economic development. That is, unlike minimal states, where they prefer to have an hands-off philosophy on the daily runnings of people's lives, developmental states have a very specific relationship between the state and the market. In fact, developmental states construct purposefully partnerships between the state and major economic interests. The point is always to boost economic development and growth. Japan, France, and Germany are current examples of these type of states. South Africa is also inclined towards developmental principles, as is Nigeria on the African continent. America under Obama also saw this type of statism, especially because it was in the middle of the international credit crunch, or the global economic crisis, and as a result, Obama had to purposefully intervene in the American economy to try and break even. What about social democratic states? These type of states aim to rectify imbalances and injustices that a market economy might produce. So the state is really seen as a means for enlarging liberty and promoting social justice, all in order to eradicate poverty in society and to reduce inequalities. A social democratic state has two features. The first one is Keynesianism. The second is social welfare. Keynesianism basically means to manage or regulate capitalism with a view to promoting growth and maintaining full employment. Social welfare refers to the promotion of social well-being among citizens, so enabling them with the principle of individual empowerment. This shifts from the negative view of the state to a positive view. In other words, in this case, the state is a necessary evil, the point being to enlarge in liberty and promote justice in society. Then we have examples that are collectivized states. These type of states exert complete control over the entirety of economic life. The best example being from the Soviet Union, the USSR, during the Cold War period, where the government abolished private enterprise altogether and set up centrally planned economies. For example, collective farming. We also have, see if you can guess this type of state, totalitarian states. They are all encompassing in terms of politicization, the annihilation of all boundaries that separate politics and civil society. In other words, the influence of the state is felt in all aspects of human existence, not only the economy, but also in education, culture, religion, family life. It's all-encompassing politicization. For example, Hitler's Germany was a totalitarian state. What about religious states? Religion and statehood stretches back for millennia. Originally, many monarchs and aristocrats in Europe believed in the divine right of kings. Essentially, God, the Christian God, had given them the divine right to rule over their kingdoms. However, over time, as people slowly started to become more disillusioned by religion in various territories, there was increasingly separation between the church and the state, what we know as, today, secularism, or laïcité in French. Secularism basically means the separation between the church and the state. However, since the 1980s, there's been a resurgence or rise of religious fundamentalism, for example, especially in Pakistan after 1978. You can see in the slide, no democracy, we want just Islam. In these kinds of society, we've noticed them before, Islamic states, religion is everything. You know the word Sharia law. Those are the different roles that states might play in modern societies. What about the state, though, in a global era? Is there such a thing as the decline of the state? Globalization allows for more porous borders. Does that mean that states are transforming as a result? There are three contrasting positions over this. The first one is that because of post-sovereign governance, thanks to globalization, the state is declining as a meaningful actor on the world stage. Do you agree or disagree? Consider, whenever there's an Olympic Games, how many separate, identifiable states like to compete. Does this really mean that states are declining as meaningful actors on the global stage? The second contrasting position is that there is no real change to the core features of world politics, that the sovereign state is still the principal actor on the world stage. This certainly seems true, although there are only 193 recognized states in the United Nations and over 5,000 different ethnic groups in the world. That means that ethnicity might one day supersede statehood. The third contrasting position is that qualitative changes have transformed the state, not reduced its power. It just looks like something different. It has a different role to play in society today. A very important point to consider under the state in a global era is the term supra-territoriality. This refers to increasing economic activity within a borderless world. The idea that supra, which is larger than ordinary smaller territories, so something that is bigger and larger than independent states, might be the economic activity that is continuing in this modern world. Economic sovereignty and the market state. The market state might be the only reliable form of statehood in the modern era. We're also forgetting about non-state actors and international bodies. Non-state actors refer to all of those institutions or actors that are not states. In other words, TNCs or MNCs are transnational corporations or multinational corporations. Consider that 51 of the world's top 100 largest economies are actually corporations, not states. General Motors in Denmark, Walmart, which is an American shopping center much like our ShopRite or Checkers, in Poland, and ExxonMobil in South Africa. Increasingly, there is a global civil society that is making headlines around the globe, especially those related to Greenpeace, suggesting that the world's problems are in your hands and you have the power to resolve them. There's also a kind of political globalization. Consider the Arab Spring and how the politics during the Arab Spring spread across the globe politically. There is a growing phenomenon of multi-level governance, regional governance, and even continental governance. We refer to the pooling of sovereignty, the best example of which would be the European Union. Another point to consider under the state in the global era is the idea of failed states and state building. This is a very contested concept because once again you have to label whether or not you consider a state to be failing. Who decides? The weak state leads to warlordism. Look at page 75 of Hayward. Warlordism is very much predominant in the African context. Consider through the DRC, Burundi, Rwanda, the Central African Republic. Widespread criminality, and social dislocation. Those were consequences of warlordism. Essentially, generically, a failed state refers to a type of state that is unable to maintain domestic order and personal security for the individual citizens in that country. Somalia is considered such, that it is a failing or failed state, and Sierra Leone. One way to really understand the Fragile State Index is useful for you in order to understand failed states or failing states in the international system. Remember that this might be biased and very specific, following very specific principles and indicators, but it nevertheless is an important way or an interesting or useful way to really look at something very quickly and try and understand whether or not these states are failing, if there's a warning, if it's sustainable, if it's unstable. And for those of you looking at McCormick's essay question 1, you'll be looking at the Fragile State Index. So please make use of this where possible. This ends lecture 4.2 on politics and the state. If you have any questions about politics and the state, please feel free to email me at my email address or speak to one of your tutors in Politics 1A. Thank you.